Oh, so much work. What was I
What
doing?
is today?
Oh, yeah.
Today is the 5th.
Okay.
You sound nice and crisp over there, Colin.
Oh, that's surprising. My connection sucks compared to the apartment.
Well,
no.
you could have fooled me. Trade history. I'm gonna fuck up all these trades. Can't wait.
Oh boy,
It was so fun. It was
they're fucked up to begin with, though.
It was so funny in the Discord because I was like, "Up, Scott Reedy's back," and I was like, "Oh wait, did Scott Reedy go? No, wait, hold on."
Scott Reedy went the other direction.
I know. You know why? I was thinking of Pedersen. I was like,
Okay, I have posted on Twitter a link.
Okay, hold on one sec. Let me be right back.
Okay. Also, if you have like a good link, all of the trades that went down, feel free to throw that into chat because I don't know that I necessarily have a good roundup. I can spend a moment here Googling.
I always just use cat friendly.
Do they have like a?
I don't think so. I've never filter
roundup.
trades. There we go.
Like a team
seems
transactions page. Okay, I'll go there. Cat
yeah, you can
is the
filter
best, by the
by.
way.
Yeah, you can filter by team.
Okay. There's also a trade history button. The team page.
Yeah, but then you're on the team page.
And
I don't know. I haven't been to that page in ages. Is it good now?
No, it's still depressing as fuck. It's more depressing now because Timo Meier's not on it anymore. But
it's annoying how good he's gonna look in a Devils jersey.
Every time I see a picture of him smiling in a Devils jersey, it's like an ice pick to my soul. It's not cool, man. Not cool.
I mean, it's hard to it was always hard to get attached to Meier because there was something about the team that felt off. It was like, I don't know. I like him as a Shark, but is this the Sharks or is this something weird happening? And it was something weird happening.
Yeah. Well, he's only the best player the Sharks have drafted in like 25 years, so Lasai.
Well, maybe we get to amend that statement this offseason.
I mean, it's looking better and better. I mean, Alex assures me that players don't tank, but I would argue that you could not convince me watching yesterday's game that the players were not in on the tank. Let me tell you. Because that game was fucking ugly. And so was the game before it. So... Also, I totally predicted it. So the first, I was like, "All right, we got Eklund has his point, and we've got 2 goals. Time for the comeback for the other team." And then that's exactly what happened, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, I was not. My wife's like, "Oh, they're playing so good," and I'm like, "Not sold, not sold." Like, sure, they look all right this period. Fully don't expect them to maintain that, and they did.
And that's for the better.
It is, yeah. Hold on, let me remember how to do this. Why did Facebook make it so fucking complicated.
You say this every 2 weeks.
It's because
Alex.
I don't
Every
log.
2
It's
weeks
because I
you
don't
are-
use Facebook anymore.
I know,
But like,
you're confused by Facebook every 2 weeks. It's hilarious.
Well, they do it. I mean, look, like they do it intentionally because they don't want you to log out. So they fucking make it as hard as they can to log out. Like I'm not naive to that, but like, boy, I tell you what, between this and like Google, when they just take away stuff that like, no, actually, that's the thing that people like about your thing. Just be cool. Give me one sec.
But they can't be.
I know. It's just fucking annoying. I'm in a mood.
Well,
Oh, did
Good.
it also start snowing right after you finished building your giant trampoline in the yard?
You talking to me?
Yeah.
We have a giant trampoline in the yard. It's a death trap for children.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to have one.
He's asking if it has snowed on it yet.
No, we've been getting gnarly hail and thunder though. I mean, like BB size hail and like absolutely dumping for like 5 straight minutes out of nowhere. It's pretty bizarre. It's pretty funny though. You know, still living in the Bay Area because you have all these Bay Area people who are like, "Lord, we need the rain," and now they're like, "Fuck, stop raining." It's like, well, you know what? If we move from severe drought to drought, I'll take it.
Yeah, that's a win.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me I'm just trying to get some easier stuff here for me. Trade center, trade tracker. Gonna butcher some names this morning. I actually almost went to the game yesterday. We were in the area.
I was gonna say cap friendly if you go to the team page and click trade.
No, I know, but I don't like the layout for that. For this, I want like a quick, easy top level. Yeah, I know. Okay. Trust me, I've got cap friendly open every time. But there's a quick San Jose Sharks transactions, and then that's just yeah. Do we talk about Megna? Or are we gonna include him in here?
I don't think we did talk about. I don't actually remember if we talked about Megna, but also, who the fuck cares about Megna?
Indeed.
Correct. Yeah, but I want to cover the. You're not wrong. Give me one sec here.
I mean, I did say at the time on Twitter that it was ironic that they finally got him playing decently as a partner to Carlson, and they're like, "Well, we don't need that because everyone's in on the tank."
Just get my NHL pronunciation guide up here because I'm gonna butcher it all.
Oh my god. I fully intend to butcher Mukhamadullin Okotiuk.
Mukhamadulin's actually the easy one.
Which one are you fucked up by then?
Well, Okudiak? First of all, Johnson and Janssen, because he wants to be Johnson, but you know that's not what it is.
I'm just gonna make everyone mad referring to Zetterlund as Zederland.
I'm just gonna call him off. Yeah. That's not great. Okay. You guys ready? It's podcast number 197, I believe.
197.
97. All right. Here we go. Hello and welcome to. Are you recording?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, the stream records on its own, so I don't have to start recording anymore.
I'm going to start that over.
So this whole time this whole stream has been technically recording to YouTube.
Yeah. I was making sure.
That was, by the way, a good time to ask a question midway through your intro.
Hey, you know what? Fuck off. Here we go.
All right, I will.
Hello and welcome to Circling the Cup, San Jose Sharks podcast episode number 197. And that's right, we are closing in on 200 and still do not have a plan for that 200th podcast episode. So, hey, tell you what, why don't you write us and make some suggestions and maybe we'll do that. That sounds great. Hey, some big news this week. Well, last couple of weeks. Fun trade deadline. Not necessarily the day itself, but pretty active trade window, I guess I should say, for a lot of teams in the NHL. Probably one of the more active ones we've seen lately. We're going to talk about it this podcast. I'm Alex. Here with me, as always, is the Honorable Ben. What's up, Ben?
200th episode, we bring Timo Meier in for an interview.
Oh, that would be great timing. And of course, you heard the sultry laugh of our good friend Colin. Now, by the way, our expert in all things Swedish, because
and the Sharks.
we seem to like them. Yes, and Sharks, exactly. Yeah, I love the fact that Randy keeps calling them the Swedish House Mafia. It's great. But Colin, how are you doing?
God.
We haven't had you in a while.
Cold and snowy, and really, really waiting for the end of the season.
Oh, cold, just like the heart of a Sharks fan right now. Well, that's excellent. Listen, guys, we got a lot of trades to talk about here because, the Sharks were active. Now, you're probably wondering, why didn't you do a Timo Meier podcast? Well, one, we try not to pod just for the sake of podding, and we don't want to fill slow news days with gibberish, but also we knew that there'd be a bunch of other moves, or suspected, I should say, there'd be a bunch of other moves, and we wanted to wait for everything to settle down. Well, it settled down. We are past the trade deadline. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to give our thoughts on the individual trades and then our thoughts overall. We'll do the grade thing. You know how it works. But we're going to hop back for a minute here because I don't think we talked about it. On February 5th, the San Jose Sharks traded Megna over to the Seattle Kraken for a conditional 2023 fourth round pick. So, Ben, I know you have a couple of thoughts on this just because Megna sort of just started to fit. You want to break this down for us? You like this trade?
My takeaway on the trade is who gives a shit, first of all. But the thing that I found ironic about the whole thing was that Megna had finally started to kind of solidify his role on the team as like the stable guy who plays next to Carlson and makes that pairing Kirk with the defensive guy and the oh shit, what is he going to do next guy? And then of course, at the moment that happened, they just decided, you know what, Seattle needs him instead. And, you know, fourth round pick, who cares?
Well, you know, the funny thing with the Sharks, you know, as we talked about all season and much of last season, is their timing is bizarre because, you know, they hired their GM too late. You know, it feels like they're like, you know, a couple of steps behind where they want to be. And that's actually going to wind up being a little bit of my overall take from the trade deadline as well. But, you know, the thing with Megna, though, and I see this pop up a lot. This is going to pop up with the Esimont trade. There were a couple of fans here who were like, oh, and, you know, Megna is not, for me, I don't really care, mainly because Megna, he's not the future of anything, right? So I would much rather, in this instance, the Sharks aren't good right now anyway, I would much rather take the players who I know are not part of the future or the bridge, or really a stable part of the bridge, and move them for pieces that could be. The other thing to point out,
that's totally fair, Alex. Like, this is kind of why I say I don't care. You traded a guy who's not part of the future for a fourth rounder that will also not ever be part of the future, probably. So
but a little bit of a roll of the die with that. You know, granted, it's conditional.
It's a lottery ticket. I mean? It's fine. You know.
I mean, you know what you have with Megna. See, here's the thing that I think. I mean, this always happens, right? It especially happens with our prospects. But a lot of Sharks fans really, and I'm not saying we're perfect with it either. It's hard to evaluate talent, obviously, but you kind of got to distinguish between good and good on this team, because they're not really the same thing. You know what I mean? So like Megna started to become a serviceable, you know, defenseman within our system. That's great. Our system sucks and our D is not particularly good. So like, I don't necessarily, I'm not trying to knock him, but I don't put a lot of stock into his play and us losing him as really being like some sort of weird linchpin and now everything falls apart. So yeah, like take the pick. I think that's a great thing, to be honest.
Yeah, it's fine. Like I said, I just think, I mean, it's a conditional, so it might become a third rounder, and then that's bad because the Sharks are terrible in the third round. They remain absolutely abysmal in the third round.
Yeah, right. Well, okay. I mean, Colin, did you have any thoughts on the Megna thing?
Not really. I'm all for the magic beans at this point of the season. I just like, and this comes from the deadline. But my question is, was this what Megna was worth, or is this what GM MG thought he could get.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean,
That's an interesting question, actually.
yeah.
I
Boy.
don't think you could get more from Magna, but we have
Right.
certainly seen prior GMs of the Sharks get like 2 second rounders for a guy that it would boggle your mind you'd get that. I
think
tend to think this is a fine
yeah.
deal. This is a solid B minus.
I think you could have, but that would have required sitting and waiting to the deadline because there was a lot, D was like D was the hot thing this deadline specifically. But I don't think you could have known that at that point in time or even had confidence that Magna would necessarily be one of the ones that would be appealing. So, I don't think you would have gotten much more had you waited and you had it in front of you, take it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really have an issue with it either way. Well, let's talk about the big one because I know we want to. Ben, because I don't feel like butchering half these names here.
Why not?
I even have the pronunciation guide up there. And full disclosure, I'm still going to abbreviate names here just because it's easier. But listen, we've talked a lot on this podcast the last couple of weeks about who we would have tried to move and who we would have tried to hold, knowing all well that Timo Meier was likely going to be moved. There was way, way too much chatter about it. The Devils were in the conversation, the public-facing conversation from the get-go. We talked about that quite a bit. Ultimately, Greer ends up pulling the trigger. Now, the weird thing about this trade in particular was how it kind of went down. Trades leak all the time, happens, especially if you're following guys like, LeBron or Friedman or anyone on TSN really, fourth period, you'll see bits and pieces. But I swear to God, this trade like leaked out person by person, return by return over the course of like 8 hours. It was like Timo Meier for who? Who else? Oh, is that the trade? And it's really funny. That's part of the reason why we wanted to wait here, because there's all sorts of I think the NHL guy did like an analysis video with like part of the trade. You know what I mean? It's like, would you still feel that way if you had all the other pieces included that are in that? So Ben, why don't you break down this trade for us? Because I know you got heavy thoughts on it.
Okay. Right. So the Sharks sent out not just Timo Meier to the Devils, but a whole bunch of spare parts also as part of making this trade work. Because they were, as we talked about weeks ago, one of the challenges the Sharks faced is that they had a bunch of folks sort of on their roster, their 50-man crew, and this was clearly going to be a multiplayer trade, so you've got to throw in spare parts. So it's not just Meier who went; it's Harrington, whatever, Emmond, whatever, Ibrahimov, super whatever, Hadaka, kind of a bummer because he is one of those guys who I think had potential if they'd have given him a shot. But whatever. Obviously, the keystone of this side is that we have given up on trying to hold on to Timo Meier and retained 50% of his salary this year, which seems not great, but whatever. I guess that makes the numbers work. In return,
hold on, I think you forgot 2 pieces too, right? Did you say Emond already?
I forgot I did say Iman, whatever,
Ibrahimov,
whatever. I forgot the 5th round pick that we
Yes.
got from Colorado, which would be super late in the 5th round anyway, so it's basically a 6th.
Right.
So who cares? Coming in is Andreas Johnson, who I don't have strong feelings about. Fabian Zetterlund, apparently he's okay. He's shown well this year. And then
he can I just say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
That guy is built like a cinder block, and yet he skates really well. He just seems like he has the capability of being a more skilled wrecking ball, which is nice. I don't mind that so much.
I mean, you've given up a super skilled wrecking ball. You might as well get back and try and aggregate to get some more wrecking balls back. Yeah. Okay, and then 2 guys who are currently basically prospects, but not any of the prospects you would hope that the Sharks would get back in a trade with the Devils. So there's kind of the top 3 guys in their system. The Sharks didn't sniff any of them. So you get back Nikita Okudyuk and Shakir Mukhamadullin, a first rounder, which will be New Jersey's, which means it's going to be late. A second round pick that's conditional that may become another first rounder that will also probably be late, and then a 7th round pick for some reason. So
yeah, I mean those first round picks are just about second round picks.
Yeah, they're not. You're not getting a star back for those guys. You're not
Yeah.
getting a star in the guys that you got. I think, though, there
Right.
is. I know Corey Pronman of the Athletic feels much better about Mukamadilin and Akudiuk than most prospect watchers do. So
Yeah.
what I would say is this is a wet fart of a trade for Timo Meier. The reasons that Greer gave for having to do this trade right now were bullshit. And if I, as a Sharks fan, this is a huge disappointment. Now, could this package of players turn out to be pretty good for the Sharks? Yes, sure, they could. But you didn't get any of the guys that are like seriously. Look, okay, no one's ever replacing Timo Meier. Let's start there. He's the best player the
Yeah,
Sharks
right.
have drafted in 25 years. He's better than Couture ever was. He's better than Hurdle as a play driver. I love Hurdle, but it's true. Sorry, buddy. And also, we invested a lot in this guy, given that there were a lot of folks at the time who were like, "Oh, that's not the best pick at the 9th spot in that draft." And he nonetheless turned into a wonderful player. So you have to. I don't know. You have to get more, I think, for a Meier than the Sharks got, especially with the draft picks, the draft picks being almost guaranteed to be essentially not first rounders. But hey, good on the Devils, man. Good on the Devils. You got a guy who is gonna really matter for your playoff run. Here's what the final thing I'll say, and then I'll let you guys edit my pessimism. The good thing about this Timo Meier trade is we have absolutely wasted his physical prime before sending him off. So, so that's good, right? I mean, he's going to be turning 27 as a Devil, and that's about the time that the physical tools begin to start to decline. That doesn't mean that Meier's going to suck in 2 years in any way, shape, or form. It's just that as a physical player, he's much more likely to get ground down to a fine nub, like a pencil eraser, over the first 2 years of his coming contract with the Devils. So, well done, Sharks. Absolutely wasting, the best player you have drafted in 25 years. That's my
well,
takeaway.
let's be nice though. They wasted Hurdle first.
Well,
So,
can I point something out there? Can I point something out there? Because this is one of the many things that maddens me about this Sharks team. I'm with you, Ben. I love Hurdle. I absolutely love Hurdle, and I'm glad that he signed here. However, that they would let an interim GM make a decision like that, especially one with a contract like that and term like that, ahead of hiring their actual general manager, to me was the most inexcusable, stupid thing I've ever heard. Because what you're doing, especially on this roster, it would be one thing if this wasn't a roster full of horrible contracts, but it is, right? The Sharks made their gambles, didn't pay off.
Right.
Whoops. So to handcuff your general manager coming in, and I'm not even saying I think Greer's a great general manager in general.
He's not. And he did it. He did more, right? Like,
yeah.
Just really quickly here, like, you're absolutely right. Like that was not a great thing but I feel a bit worse. I honestly, all I feel in all of this is for Tomas Hertl, who got punked into signing that contract. But the thing is that, like, Greer had the opportunity to start to undo that problem with the Burns trade, and then what the fuck did he do after that? Is he grabbed a different set of fucking handcuffs and put them right back on himself? So I don't feel bad for Greer in this at all.
No. I'm not pointing out that I feel bad for Greer. To be clear, what I'm pointing out with is, if I were the owner of the team, I would not have allowed that decision to be made at that point in time. It would not. It would not have been it is not the correct thing, and that is a huge part of the reason. I don't blame Hurdle. There's a huge part of the reason that the Sharks were in the position they are now, and basically needed to, didn't have to, but were put in a position where Meier was even there. Because had you waited for the general manager to come in before you had done that, this could be a completely different situation. My big issue with this trade is how overly convoluted it was, and that really winds up being one of my frustrations with Greer as a GM right now. Is a lot of the moves that we're seeing, and we'll get to one in a little bit. Some of these are the most roundabout way of doing things. Now I understand here, right? We talked a lot about contract limits, right?
Yep.
This trade deadline in particular, not just for the Sharks in general, was heavily impacted by cap space, which is why we had so many trades, some of which seemed really bizarre in returns. It's because teams had to navigate into the cap to get players at all. But, for me, like, okay, when the trade was first announced and you didn't have the Sharks prospects in there, you knew it was Timo Meier, and you knew there was another player, but you weren't quite sure who. I didn't love it. I didn't mind it as much. The second you start throwing in the other prospects, not that I even necessarily have a ton of faith in some of them, to me, I look at this list and it's like, okay, you basically got Johnson, right? Who is, he's going to come in and work real hard because he knows the situation he's in, but he's a throwaway player for the Sharks at the moment, right?
Yep.
Then you get Zetterlund. Zetterlund is a perfectly fine bridge player. He's got skill. There's upside to him. He's certainly nowhere near equal to Timo Meier.
He's better than most of the parts that Greer has brought in so far.
Correct.
Let's
correct.
say that. Better upside.
He's a good. He will wind up being, I believe, a good complement to the players that we are hopefully having come up, and the age is right for that as well. So I don't particularly mind Zetterlund. Again,
I don't either.
But
there were better choices, but I don't mind it.
I'm going to get there. But Zetterlund, obviously you're not making up so far. You haven't made up anywhere near what you were going to get from Meier over the next couple of seasons. I think as the Sharks. Okay, then so you've got the two defensive prospects. Here's what gets me. I wasn't necessarily expecting to get any of the prospects that I think fans were proclaiming we were going to try to get. And I'm sure Greer asked about those prospects. Fine. But these are not sure thing prospects. And look, no prospect is really a sure thing, but there's a higher and lower on the scale. To your point, Ben, I mean, I think you kind of mentioned it, quickly, but analysts are extremely divided on these two guys. And so that means it could turn out great. And we'll look back at it in hindsight at some point, hopefully, in a positive manner. But also these are gamble ones. And then you have the picks, right? Which again, are they picks, and do the Sharks need to basically restock their prospect pool? Sure. These aren't great picks. They're not, they did get picks, which is fine. So the way I look at it is this. On one hand, this is a weird way to look at it. I know, Ben, but if I take Timo Meier name out of it, but just put a player, okay?
Yeah.
The Sharks with this trade have done the right thing in that they need to refresh their prospect pool, and so they did that. Now,
and
where
they're extremely shallow on the D side.
Exactly.
By their own doing as well.
Right. So right idea, but I'm going to throw in the lackluster execution, because I have to believe that even with cap strap teams, that, and especially with the rumors that were flying around before, that the Sharks probably could have done better here, and especially since they had to give up so many prospects going the other way.
And also, one thing about that, they fucking told Carolina publicly, "You're out," while still negotiating with other teams.
I know.
Why do you do that? Anyway, sorry, Colin, you had thoughts. Please.
Well, it's just the Tanner Jeannot trade went down like right before the Meier one, and I'm just like, it's just comparing that. It's like, okay, Calfoot maybe functional, whatever, and then just a fistful of non-conditional trades. Granted, they're all like second and third, fourth, whatever. But like, it's one of those trades that you sort of expected to see. This player goes over. Maybe you have to do spare parts for contracts because Greer decided somehow he wasn't going to need cap space or contract space this year. But you send the player off. You get a just pile of stuff back to the point where you feel like, oh boy, all this stuff. What am I going to do with all these things I have? Even if it's just like dimes and pennies.
Yeah.
And then you look at the Meier trade. You're like, huh. I guess we got something.
Well, here's the thing with that, and I like the way that you're kind of phrasing it, because that's what frustrates me about this trade is I feel like we gave up Timo Meier, who's good, and a bunch of spare parts. And in return, we got younger spare parts, which again, I agree that we need to get the prospects in. We need the D side's weak there. We need to get younger. The draft picks, collecting draft picks are great. But like they didn't get anything in this return that is going to make up for the loss of the player that they traded in the near, or I even really think the long term. And I think that's look, the timing for Timo Meier on the Sharks, they screwed that up. Not great. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, this trade between how convoluted it was, between the return, just everything about it to me, I have very much been one of those people who believes that that the Sharks, if the Sharks were to make smart moves, that they could turn things around sooner than maybe other people think. Not immediately, but sooner. But this trade specifically communicated to me that is not even on the books anymore. And the frustrating thing about that is all season long, that is what the organization has tried to sell the opposite. Now, look, you shouldn't trust the organization. We've talked about this a lot. When they go rebuilding on the fly, what they really mean is they're rebuilding. I understand that. But what kills me about this trade deadline for the Sharks is, on the one hand, I'm going to play devil's advocate with myself. On the one hand, you do need to give a GM coming in a little bit of time to evaluate, the play on the ice. On the other hand, everything about this trade and the trades that came after tells me that this year was a complete waste of everyone's time. Granted, maybe they get Bedard and I feel differently about that. But in general, like if they basically waited until the end of the season to start a rebuild that could have started a year earlier or season earlier. And I look at this as like, okay, now with these pieces that we're getting back, yeah, we're definitely not getting good until, 26, 27 or whenever. So, and they're doing it at a point where they've already lost attendance. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Alex, they brought up Eklund.
But
they brought it back for a family game, which I'm not going to say isn't smart. Although even that, where they're like, we really don't want to bring him up because this blah blah blah. It's like, screw you. Now you're just talking out of both sides of your mouth. But that's the thing with this trade that I think really bummed me out the most was, look, I didn't expect to keep Timo Meier, even though I was hoping that maybe they would move Carlson or Couture instead, which would make a little bit more sense for the team.
It's actually that's a huge issue. That they did move.
And Carlson, is clearly aligned with my take here, because he basically said that. He was like, this trade basically indicates we're going to suck for a while. And that's, I think, look, if you're a hockey team's a business, right? You don't just make trades for optics' sake, clearly. But what they're sort of communicating here, it isn't great. And again, the way that Greer seems to be going about these moves, it's like for everything that he will do right, he does something just really wrong or incredibly lackluster or incredibly confusing and convoluted.
What did he do right, though?
What he did right was...
You want to know? Henry Thrun. That fucking... I don't know if he's going to get Thrun signed, but Henry Thrun projects as Matt Carl 2.
Yeah.
So the very next move he did, picking up Henry Thrun and trying to sign him, is one of the best moves Greer has made, bar none.
Yeah, I would have to think that, well, that is an extra trade up here on the list. I have to think there's obviously some connections there. My first question was, well, if the Ducks don't think they can resign him, why would the Sharks? But there's been some reports afterwards that there are some connections, so they must have enough confidence to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to be pissed off that they got rid of. I mean, it's third round pick, but still,
it's a third round pick.
It's a third round pick in the deep,
the fucking Twilight Zone.
Oh,
I know. But listen, Ben. Here's where you and I will agree, though.
Yes.
Even though picks for you are a crapshoot, picks are an asset that can be leveraged, better or worse.
I think this was look. I think the Sharks are going to sign, and in that
I hope so.
vein, this is a great trade.
Yeah. So
because,
okay.
You guys liked Matt Carl, right?
Yeah, I love Matt Carl.
Yeah.
Matt Carl here's the thing.
Great. Here's the thing, right? So Colin, to go back to what you had originally asked, and not just here, what the Sharks have done right this trade deadline is get younger and get prospects and get picks. Whether or not they got the right ones or as good as they could have gotten, that is really the sticking point.
But to me, this, and in our Discord, I described it as a drunken swerve, and this is what it feels like, because I was really hoping you were gonna say, "Oh, getting rid of Burns." It's like, well, then look at what he immediately did, and look at our retained salary position, where it's like we have in like total dead cap and retained salary, we have like Timo Meier, basically. And
Sigh.
like I come back to the Balsers buyout, and I just think that was the big red flag. I should have just been like, that makes no sense. Why do that?
Yeah,
You could
I
have
mean, it
traded
was a
him
red
for
flag at the
7.
time.
Well,
There-
we
there-
we were all
upset about
spooked
that.
by it, but like it was so bizarre. And it's like, sure, the Sharks, like through this trade deadline, the Sharks have done what they should have done last offseason, and put themselves in a position with more trade assets, more cap space, more contract space, the ability to be agile and pick up trades or pick up draft picks for just retaining some cap in somebody else's trade. And here we are, further handcuffed. I saw some comments around the net in places that this trade deadline basically shifts the Sharks bounce back from like 3 to 4 to like 5 to 7 years. And
yeah.
Yeah.
It did. Well, listen,
Yeah.
this trade deadline for the Sharks was interesting because everyone was confused. Like Shane was confused on Twitter. Like there were points where he'd be like, not quite sure. And let's talk about one of those trades there, right? Because another trade that occurred here was the Sharks traded Esimont for Nemesnikov, right? Okay, no, here's the thing. That trade goes down, and I immediately understood what Greer was trying to do. But two things that baffled me about it. First of all, it was very clear that he was basically going to trade what he had acquired and go for a pick. Now, I will admit I was wrong here. I did not have faith. Just because a player, like 4 years in a row goes for a fourth round does not mean he will continue to go for a fourth round. He did,
true.
folks. He did. But I was still like, that's a gamble. But beyond that, I was like, talking about the roundabout way that he seems to do things, we basically executed a 3-team trade without the third team. And so I was watching the trade deadline clock like a hawk going, oh my God, did we try to do a 3-team trade with no third team involved? And are we going to get stuck holding the bag? Because here's the thing with Esimont, right? Esimont, waiver pickup, right? If you could get any return for him, fine. He came in. Do I think he's a particularly great player? I personally don't. Do I think he was a spark plug? Yeah, absolutely. Would I have held on to him? I mean, if I had to, if I could get something else for him, great. But if the return had been what we had gotten, not the pick, I would have been really pissed off. Because that would have well, it's not that. It's like for where we are and where he is, like that would have been us just helping Tampa Bay for no discernible reason. Now he ended up completing the second part of that trade, so nice thumbs up. But the fact that we had to wait basically 24 or however many hours and with our fingers crossed going, please tell me the other half of that is going to come through, is ridiculous. I've never seen that before, being a Sharks fan, where we've traded something and I've sort of understood what they were going for, and then but the another half wasn't immediately there. Like I was expecting within an hour, 2 hours, that it would come out, oh, this is actually a 3-team trade. Kind of like the Meier thing, because the Meier thing sort of trickled out. But again, you look at the Meier and how convoluted that trade was, and then you look at this one where it's like, where's the second half of this? What do you mean you're not sure yet? Like that to me was that was a ridiculous roller coaster that I did not want to be on.
Well, and
it was weird.
It was weird.
And you have no faith. Like there is no faith. Oh, I've seen this sort of stuff before. Like it is his first year, so maybe convoluted.
It's
stuff
baby's first trade deadline.
That's kind of how it was, and that factored into why I didn't have faith. If Doug Wilson had made this trade, I would have immediately had faith in there'd be that the other part would come in. Also, I don't think he would have made a trade like this and then just sat. Not that I
No,
think Greer was
he wouldn't
sitting.
have.
I'm sure he was getting calls, but I'm pretty sure Doug Wilson he wouldn't have made the trade without having that lined up first.
I agree.
But here, this was just like, again, I don't have faith in Greer's ability to negotiate at this point in time and get great returns. So him taking this on to me purely looked like a bad idea.
I didn't think the waiver pickup of Asamont was a great idea in the first place, but he actually kind of played better than I expected him to.
Yeah.
So again, kind of the Magna trade, like, why are you doing this?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is Estemont's not particularly old. Like yeah. So, and again, that speaks to this turnaround taking longer than they were initially saying as well. Not that I think Esimont was going to be a piece that turned it around, but by flipping him for a pick, which is a non-player, which is something that, and it's a 4th round one, that takes time to develop. Again, you're moving out some of the pieces that you had that maybe were actually holding up a little bit of what you wanted. That's the other thing too, is Esimont and Megna were both very much players in the style that Greer seems to want. Esimont specifically, right? Zetterlund is too. So that it was just, But look, in the end, we did flip the result for a 2025 4th round pick to the Winnipeg Jets. So it worked out, but good Lord, did I feel like that was a game of hot potato.
I would love for there to be some indication of a plan, because right now the roster management long-term plan for the team, it's like watching our defense in games right now. It's falling apart habitually. And anytime I look for any sort of semblance, it's like, well, okay, yes, I mean, but that's also assuming we don't get first overall and like go for Michikov or something, and then Iron Curtain keeps them there.
Yeah, let's talk about another convoluted trade here, because there's more, folks. The Sharks traded Nick Bonino, which is great. Honestly, that's the correct thing to do.
Yeah.
They traded Nick Bonino for a 2023 7th round pick and a 2023 5th round pick, except a 5th round pick was announced to be going to someone else as acting as a broker, basically eating a portion of Nick Bonino's salary. That's what made the trade happen. So again, this is a very convoluted way of doing things. Maybe it needed to be. The Sharks wind up trading a 2024 5th round pick and Tony Sund for Arvid Henriksen coming back the other way. And again, I just this to me is more of a cap situation type trade. Again, there were a lot of these this season where people had to retain picks or broker deals, but just the whole way, again, it went down after the last two. You're like, what are we doing?
Getting big body defensemen. That's what we're doing.
Getting Swedes, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Loading up on the Swedes, Colin. You better be on your game.
Now, the team was Swedes.
Yeah. Now there was one more trade that the Sharks executed, and that was they traded Scott Reedy to the Dallas Stars for Jacob Peterson. That one was funny only because when that one came in, the way that it was reported, this is how much I've been following Reedy. I'm going to be blunt with you people. He hasn't been super high on my prospect list after seeing him play a couple of times. So I saw this come in. A lot of people did too. I'm not the only one who was like, oh, look, we got back Scott Reedy, not realizing that we hadn't ever traded him. And they had just listed it backwards. And then I saw Peterson at first and I was like, oh, we got Pedersen back. And I was just like completely lost for about 10 minutes.
Come on. It's a T, not a D.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. It took a while to register.
Yeah. The Peterson trade it's like what they're almost the exact same in terms of physicality. Like,
it's a change in scenery trade.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to love it. It just occurred. That's kind of the way that
is a good summary of my feelings.
That's actually, that should be the Sharks season 10.
Oh.
You don't have to love it. It just happens.
You don't have to love it.
Here's Carlson's Norris. Like, I seriously, I want him to win the Norris. I really do. I normally don't care at all about that trophy because it's just like, who's the best forward who plays near their own team's net. Like, it's a bad trophy, but I want him to win it because I want that to somehow like people have to mention how bad the Sharks were with the Norris Trophy.
Well, I mean, the thing is, they probably won't give it to him because they'll say, he's on a shit team, and somebody who's Norris caliber should be able to elevate the team.
Yeah, can I point something out? I guess if there's some extra silver lining here anywhere, it's probably that some of these players have played with each other. They're familiar with each other. Same deal with like Kaut, right? They actually they pulled up Kaut this year. I think to some people's in the last week or so, that probably to some people's surprise, just given how they've sort of handled Eklund and a bunch of others. And he's played with Hurdle, and they know each other and they train with each other. So maybe there's a little bit of extra, fingers crossed, chemistry going on there eventually. But, basically what this Sharks team said is this is going to be a long rebuild. Okay. Before we get to the games and other stuff, because there was a whole bunch of other stuff that happened this week.
Can I say one last thing about the Timo trade? So,
sure.
So what comes out after the trade is that Meier was looking for an 8-year max contract. No duh. And he's worth an 8-year max contract.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the excuse that Greer gave about the trade was that it's something the Sharks didn't comfortable doing, not because of Timo, but because of other commitments in the books. Okay. So again, we go back to that he came into a situation that's a little rough contract wise. But I just want to remind everybody that Greer did this to himself, right? The money he could have used on a Meier max contract bid could have been cleared out in this trade deadline, and also could have been around Fern's trade if he hadn't spent way too much money on, basically replaceable parts. So I just want. I gotta be
honest with you, Ben. Based off of the comments coming from Timo Meier's camp.
Yeah, he said afterwards he hates losing. I get it.
No. That's not what I was going to point out.
Okay.
That there weren't really much in the way of contract extension talks at all. I don't think that Greer ever really had the intent of extending Meier. I think he had made his mind up on that early on, which is why I think it bothers me so much that it took so long to trade him if you knew that. And again, I look at that more from the perspective of, look, the closer you get to the deadline, teams get more desperate. I get that. And also Timo Meier, when I say, hey, the Sharks could have started this earlier, they couldn't have with Karlsson because Karlsson wasn't playing like he's playing now. Like, that's one of those situations where you needed to let that go on for a while to even put the Sharks in the position in the offseason, hopefully, to kind of make a move. But I don't know that I feel that there was ever really a serious attempt to retain Timo Meier at this point. And that's why, if you've had that much time, theoretically, to make this trade, I think that's one of the things that bothers me about the return is that I just feel like, again, did you accomplish a goal that we needed to accomplish? Technically, yes. Did you get what the best deal out of it? I doubt it.
Nope. Well,
no,
here's the thing is, with a trade like Meier, with a player like Meier being traded, the entire league, like all fans are watching because all fans want to see what comes the other direction. Just be like, oh man, could my team have put up that? And you have all these other teams going, huh? We could have paid that. Why didn't
I got
we?
Spare parts.
Yeah, why didn't we get to pay that?
Damn it, Greg.
Yeah, it's disappointing end to end, and as we like to say, he made the space with Burns, then he immediately signed a bunch of bullshit to fill in because I guess he thought this team was somehow going to make playoffs. Like, we've gone over this so many times. Make the playoffs and do what? Like, no plan.
I think he wanted time to evaluate the players, which again, I understand, but I also would have hoped, based off of how late they were hiring their general manager in this process, that you wouldn't need to take as long to get there. Let's give this a grade here. I hate when people look at things like winners or losers, because of some of these trades, you have a gut instinct, obviously, but like in a trade like the Meier trade, do I think the Sharks are winners here? I have no idea, because it's going to take a while for these prospects to potentially pan out. If you guys had to give Greer, and the Sharks a letter grade for this trade deadline, what would you guys give? I'll go first. I would say to me, this is about I would say a C minus. The reason I say that again is because I do think that the Sharks again, they needed to get younger. They needed to get some prospects back. They need to get some draft picks to restock. I'm all in on this rebuild at this point, Ben. But again, I don't think they got the best possible return. I think they did it in the most difficult way they could have done it.
But we're not in a full-on rebuild. That's what Greer said.
Yeah,
I don't believe that, and you know it.
Wait, so does
I definitely don't now. If I had hope before, it's all gone now.
Well, that's nice. Does our class pass on a D?
Yeah.
All right, then he gets a D. It's a passing grade. He showed up. He had shoes on.
I think he set up. Can I tell you why I'm going to give him a C instead of a D, Colin? The other reason,
Sure.
Because I think he accomplished what he set out to accomplish. Like, I just don't think he got all the answers right.
I feel like I could go back to like September time and listen to you talk about the off-season stuff and hear maybe a similar statement that Greer that suggests this Greer has some plan or insight. I feel it's kind of reactionary. I don't know that there's a plan, and maybe Greer has just been in reaction mode coming in. Like, it's like, hey, here's the keys to the Sharks. By the way, we just did a 8x8 contract or 8x8.1 or whatever contract with a center who maybe is a bit old for trying to rebuild this team. Have fun.
Well, you know what kills me?
What?
You know what kills me? And it was just, I think, really crap timing was that they couldn't move Reimer. And obviously he'd been dealing with whatever injury stuff and hadn't been playing well as of late. But like, the funny thing about this is this was a Carlson or Reimer trade away from scorched earth. Like that's what this deadline would have been had they done that. It would have been fine.
I wanted to see Reimer go.
I mean, well, and it makes no sense for Reimer to have to be here either. But the timing just sucked.
But so again, if Greer was actually looking to do a rebuild and actually looking to sell off, get whatever assets he could, he should have been trying to sell Reimer back in November.
Oh, agree.
Like, and that's the point. It's like, if there was a plan, he would have seen that Reimer's coming out hot and like playing really well and gone sniffing around. And then there was all the goalie problems happening in early winter. Like, prime opportunity to offload a goalie who's doing well and has like a reputation for being a good second goalie, especially in the playoffs. And we held on to him because I swear the plan was always make the playoffs to justify that we're still a playoff team.
Yeah.
And when that fully blew up in his face, he drunkenly swerved into
boy.
You
know what you've just done, Colin? You know what you've just done? You have convinced me to drop my grade for this trade deadline.
Woo! You convinced Ben of something? Hey, tell me your secret.
I don't know. Keep at it for like 20 years.
It's not necessarily a good thing, you guys.
No, I know. I will say this though, Colin, just to play devil's advocate with your Reimer take there, and then I don't disagree. I think the time to do that was basically always going to either have been last trade deadline, the off season, or this trade deadline. I don't think teams are really in the market for a goalie trade in October, November, December.
But that's what I was saying is this season had just the goalie curse sweep through. It was like November.
I mean, he should have. It should have happened earlier, regardless of whether it was him or Joe Will or DW or whoever. Like it didn't make sense for it to stick this long. And I agree. Reimer for the last handful of seasons has looked like for the Sharks at least, like the glue in the back end, at least keeping the team afloat. So I could see, again, if the thinking was, which I believed more in the end of the DW era than I did in the beginning of the Greer era, that the Sharks were, some injury and a couple of bad years, away from just or bad luck, bad bounces away from maybe being good with a couple of swaps, then Reimer makes sense there. But I think it got to a point again, like if you are a GM coming in, first of all, you're going to want to leave your mark. And Greer very clearly wanted a different style of play from the get-go than what Doug and Doug Jr. and everyone else was building before. Yeah. So to me, it didn't make sense to stick with it if that wasn't how you wanted the team to play down the line anyway.
I mean, he has systematically dismantled the last 5 DW drafts, basically, over this year. Like, guys, Noah Gregor basically...
Surprised he stayed.
Yeah, survived by the skin of his teeth, I guess. I don't know. But, like, if you look, like, there's all these side moves that is just like Jasper Weatherby for bullshit, or, whatever. To the throw-ins in the Meier trade, are the same thing. So it's very clear that there is a fundamental difference in opinion on what they're looking for in players.
Yeah,
based
which is
on
fine
going forward.
I mean, it's a different general manager. It's a different if it's a different general manager with a different philosophy, a different coach. I mean, like I would expect that to be the case. I wouldn't, but I would hope to be aligned with what that new direction is, which I'm not. Right. What was your grade, Ben? You said what were you going to?
Well, I was going to go with, so if we just took the stuff he did in the trade deadline itself, looked at those deals, I give him a C-.
Right.
But if we put it in context of what he should have done over the last 4 months, it's an F.
Ooh.
It's a full-on F.
Wow.
Yeah. He's failed this.
I mean, this is late. All of this. These are moves that he clearly wanted to make for a while.
I don't know that he did. I disagree. I think he was fully deluded early on into this team could compete for a fringe playoff spot if we just plug in enough veteran players and let the kids simmer in the AHL.
How concerning though, like.
Oh, super concerning. No, it's delusional. Hence the F, right?
Yeah.
So, that he's come around now, fine, but probably the biggest move he needed to make was getting Karlsson off the books, because God only knows Karlsson's groin is going to explode before you get your next opportunity to move.
Oh,
it's going to. So that's it's malpractice.
Wow.
So full F for this year so far.
Wow. Okay.
No, I agree. If you're doing, I was going to do a year grade at the end of the season, but yeah, so far I'm right where you are.
But I think the Timo Meier trade is a D for me at best. He gets some points for getting Bonino off the books and getting something back, and for I think if he can get Thrun signed, I think that's a real good piece.
Yeah. And flipping Esimont for a fourth. Flipping Esimont
for, I guess, a 4th rounder, fine. And if we want to go back to Magna for a 4th rounder, fine. It's really going to depend on what he does with those firsts, because the best thing he could do is actually try to package those 2 late round firsts for a much higher pick down the road. Yeah. Now, what they'll probably do is instead trade back with those, which could be okay.
I'm totally expecting that. Yeah,
could be okay, but also could just be a waste of. But standing pat with those late first, bad call.
I can see them again.
My C-. My C- could move up based on what he does with those firsts.
Yeah. Well, but not even the first. See, for me, again, like, this is why I mentioned this earlier with the Esimont and the Nemesnikov trade, right? Like those picks. I would hope he's not using all of those to draft. I'm pretty sure he's going to be using some of those to package at draft day to move
some of those fourths for sure.
Yep.
Which is fine.
You have like 90 of them now.
Yeah.
I would be thrilled. I would give Greer I'd give him a C for the season if he managed to package Karlsson in a draft day trade. I don't know why. I like seeing players in draft day trades, because it just feels like, I guess I wasn't paying attention today. I'm on a new team all of a sudden.
Hey, look, guys. Here's what we know so far about Greer. Here's what you can say. His moves take forever and they're convoluted. Therefore, we don't know whether or not he's completed any of these moves. They may still be going on for all we know.
Yeah.
We have some games though. I want to get to a couple games. I don't want to talk about all the games this week. We're just going to talk about the two, and we're going to go through them quick. But
not the Washington game, I hope.
But because we skipped a week here, and because Kaut played, do you guys have any thoughts on what you saw from him? Because he got called up pretty quick, considering how they've been treating prospects otherwise. And want to get your 2 cents. Did you like what you saw? Inconsequential? Where are you feeling?
We have a logjam in the 4th and 3rd line. Like, I kind of feel like I have so many players that I just look at and go, well, maybe next year's 4th line will like him. I'm kind of exhausted off them this season. Like, Greer has exhausted me on replacement parts players, and it's hard for me to see anybody on this team who isn't that right now.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised that they had 50-50 surprised and not surprised. Not surprised because obviously part of the reason that he wanted out of Colorado was because he wasn't given opportunity. So it wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense to trade for him and then not give him opportunities. But just given the way that they've treated the youth and the prospects specifically, and especially since he was a change of scenery trade, I was shocked to see him come up so quick. He seemed fine. That's it. That's my take. Yeah. But again, I wasn't expecting to see him at all. So that was interesting.
I mean, it's one game. What can you really get out of a game?
Everything.
No, not in this sport.
I agree. But then we're going to say that, and then people are going to be like, hey, Eklund came up for a game. So let's get to these games.
And Eklund got a point. So
yeah, he's a point per game player.
Sharks took on the Blues. After the Meier trade, right? Or has he been traded yet? I don't even remember. Either way, he wasn't playing. The Sharks did this. They do this twice, folks, this week. Hint, hint. They get goals in the first period from Barabanov, who, by the way, nice jolt to energy, and Couture. And then, they piss it away across the second and third period. They did get Steven Lorentz did score in the third, but otherwise they wind up giving this game away.
Perfect
6-3
game.
Yeah. Really? Well, not at first, Ben, because at first you were like, oh God, somehow they're going to start winning.
But that's kind of my point.
I know.
Right? They get their fun in the first, and then they just are like, all right, guys, now let's let them go. We got a Bedard. We got a Bedard to pick.
No.
Get in, losers. We're going drafting.
Do you know what I loved? Do you know what I love? Not about this game, but the next game, because the same thing obviously occurs, and we'll get there. But I think I was listening to the. I can't remember if I was watching the game. No, I was watching the game yesterday, and Drew Remenda. Someone asked Drew after the turn. Well, here I'm going to skip ahead here for a second. So Washington. So we did the same thing against Washington basically yesterday. Hurdle and Barabanov again scoring in the first, and then the Sharks basically, other than Nico Sturm in the third, just gave up 8 goals. So
perfect tank game.
And Quinn was so frustrated he got thrown out. But one thing that I really appreciated here,
it got thrown out in the thing that LeBanc was involved in.
I know, which is great.
Yeah.
So ironic and beautiful.
But the thing that Drew Remenda said something that I thought was great in this game, and it referred to both games. And he basically said, someone asked him, I want to say it was Randy, or it must have been Randy. Obviously Quinn is frustrated, and Quinn's doing, Quinn's whatever, blah 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 blah. If you're the coach, what do you do? What would your second? Maybe it was Brody who asked. Either way, Drew Remenda basically was asked, "What is your speech in that locker room between periods?" And Drew goes, well, basically, I'm paraphrasing. He's like, I have to believe that Quinn's been, saying or doing whatever he thinks he can do. He's like, on the game against the Blues, I would come in yelling.
Yeah, I saw that.
Hold on. At the game in Washington, I would go to Couture and go, you need to pick this up here.
Yeah.
Because there's clearly, at this point, this team needs leadership from you. It's not going to, we just went through this yesterday. There's not a lot I can do here. And I thought, granted, I put the responsibility for fixing stuff on the making changes on the coach. Clearly, I think I've made that very clear. That for me, Quinn can voice his frustration all he wants, and I appreciate seeing him frustrated from time to time. But at the end of the day, buck stops there. So it's on him to turn it around. But it was a really good point by Drew that like Quinn's probably saying everything he can say, and at that point you got to turn to that leadership inside the roster and go.
Room. Yeah.
You have got to. This is on you. I've said all I can say, and you need to show the leadership. I thought that was great. A great read by Drew.
Yeah, too bad that leader is Coach Drew.
I know.
And like I think it was this week where Drew just seemed so like I sort of grew up watching hockey with Drew, and he always just seemed like this sweet guy who could never say a nasty word. And this last week especially, I feel like Drew's just been so close to cursing on air. And I'm kind of here for it.
Oh, it's great. I love feisty Drew. Hey, we did skip one more thing, by the way, that I can't believe we haven't acknowledged this. The Sharks did a good thing, which was they retired Patrick Marleau's number. And that ceremony,
oh, right.
I watched the entire ceremony. I thought that ceremony was fantastic, pure class. Watching Waterworks came out for me for sure, but that's because whenever Marleau cries, I just seem to have that reaction. But seeing like Jumbo up there crying and all of that stuff was really touching. I thought the Sharks handled it really well. I will say I've seen some really annoying fans go, so, do you think they're going to do Pavelski? No, they will do Jumbo and then nothing for a long time. But I thought that was a really great ceremony. I will say, I do find it ridiculous that the Sharks are so conservative about their number retirement and yet so damn cavalier about Pacific Division banners hanging in the rafters.
Yeah.
But of all the players to deserve it, Marleau, the only thing that bummed me out about the entire thing, the only thing was when he was giving his speech and he talked about, he wanted to be a pro hockey player, wanted to win the Stanley Cup, and to just know, that unfortunately that those all those rosters, guys like Jumbo who, and Marleau who really gave it the Raleigh to hometown discounts, all sorts of stuff, didn't get an opportunity to do it with us. That bums me out so much, but everything else about it I thought was great. Colin, go ahead.
Well, the only thing that I could have thought of to make that any better would be if they had done Jumbo's number at the same time.
Yeah, but you can't. Yeah, but you can't though. I mean, you could, but
I think it would have been so nice that they're like, because
totally
they succeed
could.
and
You could.
and
in fact,
have
what you
their
should have
whole thing
had
together.
What you should have had is Jumbo's number go up, dragging Marleau's number.
Well, wait, no. Only if you had Chichu's number up there, like really quick, but then it drops.
No, even better. Yeah, so you've got Jumbo's dragging Marleau's up, and then when Marleau's gets up there, what appears out from under Marleau's is Chichu's.
Did you? Oh, geez, Chichu. Whew, boy, that guy not looking great. Did you see the cute Marleau brother scrap during the Legends game?
Yes.
Let me tell you something. Those kids know what the fans want. They know what the fans want.
They all have collectively way more, like 8 times more personality than their father, too. So.
Well, when you've got a blank stage like that to play on, you just gotta live it up.
Yeah, but of all the Sharks to deserve that honor of first, if it wasn't going to be DW for the mix of GMing and playing and captaining, then Marleau is obviously a wonderful pick. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like,
just...
you guys know that I'm not a fan of Marleau, so I could care less about his.
Jesus Christ, you're ice cold heart. All right, well, guess what, Ben? You get to give the 3 stars of the week first. You knew that was coming, didn't you?
Oh.
All right. Remind me, who's New Jersey's GM?
Okay, is that your first star or your third star? Where are you starting on the star
All 3,
list,
baby. Because he fleeced fucking Mike Greer. Just fleeced him.
Fitzgerald.
Actually, hold on.
Fitzgerald.
I'm going to ruin the 3 stars. Hop back for a second. Eklund played yesterday.
Yay!
Point per game.
Yeah, what'd you think?
I thought, you know what? All right, so
He had a no-look
I'll
pass
tell you what
that
I
was
think.
Thornton-esque. He had a no-look pass that
Yep.
was Thornton-esque.
That
I think it
Hurdle
was a
was not looking
hurdle.
for.
Yep. Because he gave no indication he was going to make that pass, but it was an amazing
Well, no, he had
pass.
to do a spinorama before he could even release the pass. So here's what I thought about Eklund. I thought so like I'm going to only really think about the first period because after that it was a tire fire for everybody. He looked bigger and stronger, which is exactly what the Sharks wanted him to be. He was playing pretty physical, which surprised me because that's not his rep. So he went in and hit some people. Maybe not very effectively, but he did do it. His passing was as advertised. In fact, again, kind of like with Carlson, most of these guys don't know what the fuck to do with the creativity that Eklund brings. And it's encouraging to see that he came off of a downer in Sweden where he never should have been, probably. Did the right thing at the AHL level. Didn't get murdered by some stupid plug on the Calgary Flames affiliate. And now gets to go back down and be murdered by some stupid plug on the Calgary Flames.
Well, yeah, 9. They'll probably have him up for 9 games and then push him straight back down so that they don't.
They should have him and Bordelot in the roster. There's no at this point not to.
Yep.
It's a lost year.
Do you think we're going to see Bordelot?
No, but we should.
Nice, but no.
Yeah.
I mean, so my kind of response to the Timo Meier trade is like is reason for me to continue watching this team, except for the fact that 2 assholes I know want to continue to podcast about them.
Oh, you love us.
Yeah.
Eklund gives me an additional reason to continue to watch the season, as would Bordelot. So that's my feel on that.
Yeah, and honestly, they bring him up one for a family game on women's appreciation. Was it women's? What was either way?
Women's suffrage night? I have no idea.
No. But it was a great. But it was a perfect time to bring Eklund up because you knew everyone was depressed from the trade deadline. You had all the families in the stands, and you had a good giveaway and all that kind of stuff, and a good stories as well. There was a lot of great stuff going on that game. I don't want to diminish that at all, but the optics there was like, maybe my wife was like, oh yeah, funny timing.
I really wish someone had a Team of Time hat there.
Oh man! There was someone that was wearing I saw a picture somewhere of someone that had a Meier jersey and they had replaced the name with traditional thing or whatever.
With Bedard.
Yeah,
they put a 9 over the 2 and they put Bedard on it.
Oh god!
I mean, it's what we have to look forward to now, guys. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
3 stars.
I'm just saying. Isn't Fantilli more Greer's size?
Probably, and we probably won't get the first overall pick. So Fantilli would be a fantastic choice anyway. 3 stars. So third star, Eklund. Good point. Second star, Eklund. Way to take part in the tank. First star, Fitzgerald. You totally wrecked Mike Greer. Good job.
Yeah.
Done. All right, Ben. Go ahead.
That was me.
Oh, sorry, Colin. I just so not used to Ben going first.
All right, so I'm gonna give the third star to the draft deadline for letting us get a much better look at our GM, and we maybe want to close that door. I'm gonna give my second star to Tebo's future Stanley Cup win with the Devils.
Oh, I hate you so much right now.
And I'm going to give my first star to Ben's rage when we get like the second or third overall and we trade down 2 spots to go off board.
Well, I'm going to give my third star to the Columbus Blue Jackets because for some strange reason they're intent on closing the gap, and we went from not having a chance at all and finishing last to that actually being a very real possibility. I'm going to give my second star to Chicago for some reason doing the exact same thing. Because now the Sharks and I'll get to where the other standings. Like if you had asked me before if they could finish last, I would have said no, maybe third to last would be the best that they could probably end up with how they're playing. But now it's a real possibility, guys. And then my first star, I'm going to hand over to, I will say, Barabanov, I thought had a pretty good week hockey wise. It was exciting to see Eklund as well, but I'm going to give my first star to Marlowe just for being the first number retired and for all the players that came out and supported all the wonderful stories that we heard there.
Hey Alex,
let's get to. Oh yes, go ahead.
Hold on. You like to say that players don't tank. You say it a lot.
Yeah.
If I was to challenge you to prove that the players weren't tanking right now, how would you do that?
Other than anecdotal evidence. I mean, here's the thing. I'll tell you this much. It's very hard not to be on Team Tank after this trade deadline because you literally have no other reason to, because you now must root for it. But again, I'm not, and I get where you're going, but I will lay it out like this again, from the business side, and again having no players and other people in these positions and see what they go through and how hard. Like one of the things that I think, you heard a lot of stories about it, this trade deadline in general, how difficult it is on players to be moved. Obviously for fans, trade deadlines for us are really fun. But the thing you got to remember is these guys typically have very short careers. They have one, and then they don't really have another skill set there. So hopefully they've invested whatever money they've made wisely. But every single one of these guys, with the exception of guys like Couture or Hurdle, who are already have their last big contract, they are basically there's no advantage to them unless they're gambling against the team illegally, intentionally throwing stuff. It doesn't bode well if you have a bad season for your next contract, unless you have an amazing bounce back season or stuff like that, which is why I don't really. And again, knowing how competitive every single athlete is, even the ones that you think are lazy or suck, these guys are way more competitive than you or I are. I don't say it, but if I'm a guy like Carlson right now, I might slow it down. Just a little. Don't get hurt. Don't suck. But
you did just say that trade deadlines are supposed to be fun, right?
Yes.
I didn't have a lot of fun.
No. No, but you know what I was going to say? But you know what I was going to say about this trade deadline? I didn't have fun this trade deadline at all. But I will say it was one of the more entertaining trade deadlines I've seen from the Sharks recently, because I literally at no point in time could figure out what was going on. Like even the way the Meier trade leaked out to me, I have not wasted more of a day hitting the refresh button than I did trying to figure out what they were getting back in return step by step.
Greer too.
I know, yeah. Greer probably wasn't sure.
This day.
We made a trade for who? Oh wait, yeah. I can see. I can see him. He's got the phone. He pulls it away from his ear. Guys, we made a trade. And someone goes, for who? And he goes, oh yeah, right. Hold on. Who are we trading for? Okay, yeah. Oh, okay, yeah.
Wait, isn't he dead?
Can you make this an EA trade and just throw a couple more pieces in just so it looks good for me? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Wait. You heard that there's some GM who apparently does all their trades via some like calculator app, and everyone's just like, "Oh, it must be in EA Sports."
Yeah, I'm sure there's all. Dude, you know what? People use games like Football Manager, Championship Manager, and EHM as scouting tools all the time. It's true. Well, listen, guys. As mentioned, the Sharks. They've somehow managed to get third from last, but that's not all. They've got 63 games played with 48 points. Right below them is Chicago with 62 games played and 47 points. And last place is in reach, folks. I know it's weird to reach down, but we are. Columbus is in 32nd place with 46 points. And here's the other thing. Another team that seems pretty content with trying harder than they should is Anaheim above them. Who is now sitting at 63 and 50. So the Sharks aren't down there yet. Lots can happen, obviously. If you are a Sharks fan, look, it sucks to do, but you are absolutely rooting for the Sharks to continue to blow it without anyone getting seriously career-ending injured. And especially not Carlson, because you want to move him in the offseason. But the Sharks are pretty close. Where are they in the division? Well, if you couldn't figure it out from that, they are in last place. Anaheim is ahead of them with 50, and then not out of reach, but God, I hope they can get out of reach quick, is Vancouver at about 55 points. And then it's a pretty big leap up to Calgary at 67 points. The Sharks have some games this week. They've got a back-to-back Monday and Tuesday. They're at Winnipeg first, and then Tuesday they're at Colorado. Then they are in St. Louis on Thursday, and then they are back home against Minnesota on Saturday. The Sharks, well, this is not a great season. Can I actually say one thing though, guys, that it did excite me about this
No.
trade deadline? I was excited to see something happen, and I know that sounds weird, but to if you're gonna clean the deck, clean the deck. Don't beat around the bush with it, which I did. But I am very excited cautiously for the offseason, not because I think they're going to necessarily do anything amazing, but because now they have to incite change because they basically have jumped into that rebuild. So
But it's not a full
it should be yeah. I don't care what they say at this point. It very much is. Or it is the longest retool on the fly in the history of retools on the fly. One of the two.
Mike Greer might not be in a rebuild, but the rebuild is in Mike Greer.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great way to put it. Hey, listen, you can check us out on the Apple Podcast app. Hey, you can even rate us there. Woo! 5 stars or whatever stars you want. Someone actually rated us like a 3 and said it felt too much that they liked us, but it felt too much like a therapy session. You're not wrong. That's the position of this podcast. It is Alcoholics Anonymous, but for Sharks fans. We're addicts.
We are pro therapy. So let's be clear
here.
Well.
Yeah, it's a positive thing, I think. You can also, Android people, check us out wherever. I don't figure it out. Spotify, probably. You can check us out on the web at circlingthecup.com. You can check us out on Twitter, Ben, at Circling the Cup. And, of course, you can write us stuff at Facebook. We check it once a week over at facebook.com/circlingthecup. We also have our Discord, which is more active. I do want to call out one comment from our Discord because I thought it was wonderful. And that comes from Tea Time Law today, who wrote, "So who among us thought the Sharks would be playing meaningful games in March? Not I." And I think that is the quote to end this podcast on, guys. Say bye-bye.
Tank hard for Bedard.
I'm on board.
Indeed.
Bye-bye.
Utility for Fantilli.
Bye-bye again.
Less good.
What are you doing? Bye-bye. That's fun. I actually am. I'm not kidding. I got excited, even though I don't like or have confidence in Greer. I got excited that something like change. I like change. I was like, all right, if you're gonna move on. Let's see what happens. It won't be good.
Yeah.
But just do it. But just at this point, I had faith that when Doug was retooling on the fly, that it would actually have potential to work. I don't have faith in that now. So now I'm like, great, I'm on board Team Tank.
Yeah, let's see. I'm expecting a really weird offseason. Like this draft is going to be wild, and I think the offseason is going to be silly.
I think the Sharks are going to be very active this offseason.
But that's what I mean. Is I think it's going to be like it's more table flipping.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think they're going to. Those picks. They're going to be getting some roster players here. I just don't have faith they'll be good, but they're going to, and that's exciting. Seeing new players, I always get excited seeing new players, even if I don't think they're good.
No, I kind of want to see I want to see good lines, not just.
Oh, what you're people. 6 years away from that.
Yeah.
Oh, rude.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't disagree. Shut it.
Bedard and Hurdle are going to make a fantastic single line.
Well, so that is true. I think it'd be really, really interesting to see Hurdle play with somebody who can let him disappear. Because
I mean,
like
his name was Timo Meier.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I felt like Hurdle is still trying to do his job with Meier on the line instead of just letting Meier do his job and then finding the space. And maybe it'd be true with whoever comes in to join Hurdle. I think the thing that fell out of Hurdle's game is finding his teammates. Like he carries the plate too much and doesn't find his teammates as much.
I don't think he's never been a fantastic passer. So he's a center, but he's kind of a like Couture, he's kind of more of a scorer center. So actually I'd love to see Eklund be his line mate. Right, Eklund be the creative guy.
Yeah.
And also Eklund has shown that he can score goals. So the two of them kind of doing that would be, I think, highly effective.
Pretty fun.
I also really appreciate when they interview Hurdle, and Hurdle is very forthcoming about what he isn't doing well enough and what he needs to do. I always like